Okay, so I wanted to go live because this conversation was on my Facebook and I wanted some real time feedback, but I didn't want to leave the conversation dormant for too long because I said I was going to talk about these things. So I put up on my Facebook a few days ago or the other day or whatever about the different rants that I had intentions on going on between celebrities and their community involvement, if you will, or lack thereof, family issues, family feuds, and family beef, which I think is annoying as shit, but totally understandable in some cases. Toxic versus healthy relationships, and what was the last one? Celebrities and community. Toxic versus, I can't remember the fourth one. I have to go on and double check, but I'll address the first three. So a lot of people said, and entrepreneurship, duh, how can I forget that one? Different struggles of entrepreneurship, basically. Can't remember exactly how I worded it, but so I had people, and I was just more so saying where to start because I don't have a problem with talking about each, but the where to start was where I went. And on Facebook I got a lot of different feedback and responses along the lines of how interconnected some of these are. Like I had somebody just, kind of speak on and address each one. Somebody said in regards to toxic relationships, kind of got to hone in on the red flags, but a lot of that starts with the family dynamic. So, this family dynamic kind of helps. So I'm going to start with family just because, why not? Family is a great place to start. I'm a firm believer, if you've been following me for a while, that the most important things, your hierarchy of importance is yourself, your family, then your community. So that's how I operate, and that's how I encourage people to operate, just because I feel like, what else are you going to put above those things, or what other type of whatever you're gonna, how else you gonna do that? So that was my whole thought process. So I just feel like I also made a video in regards to what family means. So because we're starting with family, I think that's perfect. So I want to start by saying that it is very understandable that people have trauma from their past, trauma from their childhood, that there's people in your family that may have hurt you, people in your family that you may not get along with, that may have disrespected you, like anything like that over the years. However, that is not to be confused with the reality that your family is still all you have. Now, some people say, the family you create is more important than the family you come from. And if that's the case, then okay, then that's the family we're talking about. But I do believe that when you have feuds in the family, now if you're coming from a space, I'll address both aspects. If you're coming from a space where you, or of an experience where you've experienced negative, I just say abuse. If you've experienced abuse in your family, or from a family member, whether it was sexual abuse, mental or physical abuse, whatever that looks like or whatever that translates to you, by all means, I encourage you to seek healing in that, begin or continue on that healing journey, because what I do know about trauma in any form is, sad to say, the healing is the responsibility of us. Us carrying around the trauma and the pain and the anger and the frustration, it does not, unfortunately, affect the person or entities in which inflicted this pain on us. So us carrying that around just negatively impacts us, our lives. It affects your day-to-day. If you're still carrying around childhood trauma, that baggage is weighing you down. If you're 30 plus or 40 plus or even a teenager or in your 20s and you're still carrying that and you have not begun to address, unpack, and heal from those wounds, then you're just negatively impacting yourself. You're delaying your healing process and you're just inflicting unnecessary pain. The pain has already been caused. You don't want to continue to burden yourself with that pain. You want to begin to heal. If you were to get stabbed, shot, cut, cancer, anything, you would start on that healing process. You're not going to focus but too long on what hurt you or how you got here or whatever the case. Now, I'm not saying that during that unpacking and during that healing process, you're not going to address the whys and the hows and the whos and things like that, but you have to start the process. Healing is our own responsibility. So you have to get on it, because the longer you hold it on, you're just hurting yourself. You're not hurting the person, place, or thing that hurt you. And those things are continuing or moving on, prayerfully not inflicting on someone else. But even if they are, that is not for you. Unless it's a situation where you need to get law enforcement involved or somebody, you know what I mean, something like that, then do what you have to do. But do what you have to do because it's for you. So that's where I want to start in regards to the whole family trauma, because a lot of the whole family feuds are based in trauma, or the premise behind it is, oh, I'm traumatized because, this happened, or, my childhood was so yada, 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 yada. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had my own, trials and tribulations in childhood and adulthood and relationships and everything. So we all have reasons to be traumatized. There's trauma in everybody's situation. It does not look the same, and there's no way to gauge it or put it in a hierarchy. It really does not matter. When something hurts you, that's all that matters. So it doesn't matter if, something happened to somebody else and it might seem worse than something that happened to you. It doesn't matter. How something affects you is the only thing that matters, because you can't gauge how somebody else deals with something and vice versa. So however you feel affected is totally legit and valuable and to be recognized. It is not to be minimized in any way, shape, or form. However, like I said, the healing is your responsibility. But when you get into the feuding with your family members, and when you get into the carrying on that negativity, when you get into the spewing of that negativity, when you get into additional generations being exposed to that negativity, now you're being counterproductive. Now you're the problem. Because what happens with family, the thing about family dynamic is, and again, it's understood and respected that, when you create a family, that means whether you have a husband or a wife, you have children, you start to have your own family and you're building your own family. That does not negate the fact that you did come from somewhere. That does not negate the fact that you once had a mother and a father and a sister and a brother and an aunt and an uncle. And like that family dynamic still exists. And even if someone in that initial dynamic did cause harm to you, once again, intentionally, non-intentionally, subconsciously, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever the case, you do not, how do I want to put this? Because I was going to say you don't have the right, but I think that it's very important to acknowledge how you maneuver through those things and what not healing from those things looks like in those following generations. Because a lot of us, when you have those type of problems, or you have that unhealed trauma from your childhood within your family dynamic or your family unit, especially if it's like your immediate family or whatever, once you start getting your generation, your generations and under you, then what you start doing is isolating yourself, or my kid's not going to be around y'all, or I'm not, coming to any family events, and I'm not, letting my kids meet my parents, or, y'all can't, like, if somebody hurt you and you feel like they might hurt your kid, I totally understand that. But again, if it's not that exact same person, you can't get into that. You can't sit here and say, oh, well, I'm not letting my kids around my aunt because of something that her child did, or I'm not letting my kids around my my parents because of something that happened to me as a child. Like, unless it's something dire or something, like I said, that has happened intentionally that that person has not, gotten past or gotten over or healed from, or, been delivered from, or whatever. Sometimes, some of us, if you're my age or around my age, like some of us have, parents that may have been on drugs, or some of us have parents that have, you always have to take into consideration, not as an excuse, but as an explanation, number one, on why somebody did something. Sometimes there is no explanation. So I'm not necessarily saying that if somebody hurt you or harmed you, that you have to say, oh, well, or empathize with them and, well, they went through this, so da-da-da-da-da. I'm not saying that excuses anything that transpired. All I'm saying is, once again, the healing is your responsibility. So we're not focused on what they need to heal from. That is that individual's issue. But you cannot carry on that negativity and then spew it to your own fucking kids, because that's just not fair. It just does not make sense. And as much as you might think that it's beneficial, or you're protecting them or whatever, you're just, a lot of us, you're just spreading on more generational curses. So you may not be inflicting the same pain that was inflicted on you, but you're inflicting a different type of pain. You're creating a negative dynamic that not necessarily exists. What the hell is a child that's being born and raised gonna be? What, pretending that they don't have grandparents, or pretending that they don't have no other family, and they just think that it's just you and their mom, or you and their dad, and and then it's like, or if you don't never have any other kids, now they don't got no siblings, now they're just alone out here in the fucking world. You want your fucking kids to turn around and marry their uncle or aunt or cousin or third cousin because you ain't introduced them to your damn family, or they just, something happens to you, God forbid, and they have no clue where they come from or what. Like, certain shit is just like, it's just counterproductive. So I don't want to, like I said, diminish or downplay any type of anybody's trauma in any way, shape, or form. But I just feel like as adults, we are responsible for not only taking control of that healing process, but understanding the power that it has when we don't. Granted, it's a powerful thing to heal from your trauma and then move on with your life the best way that you possibly can. But you have to acknowledge that you're not just hurting you when you don't. When you don't take that accountability, when you don't take that accountability for your own healing, you become complicit. That's just the reality of the fact. Like I said, if this was a sickness, if you knew that if you go to the doctor and they diagnose you with cancer or high blood pressure or migraines or whatever, and they give you a solution, or there's a solution available, and you choose not to take it, now you're making a conscious decision to choose not to get better. And if you come across something contagious, i.e., let's say you go and they tell you, back in the COVID days, you go to the doctor and you get diagnosed with COVID. So not only are you choosing not to heal for yourself, but now you are taking your contagious ass around other people. You are spreading your germs, spreading your negativity, spreading that trauma, continuing that process, continuing that curse to those around you. It shows up in your actions. It shows up in your personality. It shows up in your characteristics. It shows up in your triggers when you turn around and get triggered by something super random and nobody knows what the fuck is going on with you. But because this happened when you were 7 years old and you choose not to talk about it and you don't want to deal with it, and now you got a man or a woman, or you can't get a man or a woman, or now you having kids and now you just treating them any type of way, or you teaching them things that are counterproductive to their growth because of something that happened to you. Now you out here with these children that don't even know how to maneuver through the world. They out here jaded on something that they may never experience. So you just have to be accountable for that and just understand that family is important. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, blood's thicker than water and da-da-da-da. Listen, however you choose to live your life as an adult, as far as, still putting your new family first, or you got your family and your friends are more important. But you can't just ignore the shit, especially if you're a parent. Most importantly, if you're a parent. Honestly, like, this is more of a, I don't want to say it's not for others, but parents, like, I'm speaking specifically to you. If you have given birth to a fucking child, if you are responsible for another generation of people, you cannot, anything that you think you're hiding them from or shielding them from by not dealing with your shit, you're actually passing on a worse version of it. because now they're not even aware. They're unaware. And then you're so jaded, you never got a chance to heal. So now you're just out here spewing negativity. It shows up in your relationships. It shows up on how you deal with men or women. It shows up on how you parent. It shows up on the type of lifestyle you live. Like, the shit shows up. So it's just very important to deal with your shit. It all comes back to dealing with your shit. Because no matter who hurt you, what happened, how things transpire, where you come from, what environment you grew up in, when you're in this place, you have to take full accountability for yourselves. We're responsible for ourselves first. And if you have children, you're responsible for them immediately following. So anything that's going to affect them in a negative manner, just like you wouldn't be walking around your kids contagious with the flu, and you would send them over somewhere, or you would make sure everybody gets vaccinated, or whatever y'all choose to do in your family dynamic or whatever, just like you would protect them from anything else, protect them from you. Don't let you be the sour source in your kid's life. Because then they're going to grow up and be adults to spew the same shit. And now we got a whole nother generation. So all these generational curses that everybody's claiming that they're trying to break, you just turn around and making new ones. And now, although we're the traumatized generation, now your kids are going to be, what, the jaded generation, the dumb generation, the clueless generation, the isolated generation. That's why we don't have community right now. Because everybody's so, instead of dealing with their trauma and figuring out their shit and then doing whatever needs to be done to the family dynamic, is, oh, I'm just me, it's just me, it's just me, everybody's just me. And that's why now we have situations like that we're in right now, i.e. government shutdown and stuff like that. And community is like the hardest thing to build, when realistically speaking, that's the easiest. Once we get all on the same page and realize that we are together, we are family. Don't let me get on my sister's sledge. We are family, because we the fuck are. So once we wrap our brains around that, then we'll be better off. But the longer we waste time being a me, I don't care about nobody, that's literally retarded. And I don't know if that's politically correct or whatever, but that's very counterproductive, and it's just not a good look. So get it the fuck together. Deal with your shit. And I'll talk about the rest of the topics another time. Have a good night.